editing to do. And
Yeah, sure.
there was I think it was 2 days ago, the Wi-Fi kept going out for her.
Oh
So my,
no.
my editing skills are going to have to get really good
Oh geez.
to
Bet
fix
that'll
that
take a
one.
while.
Yeah. So yeah, I think might want to bring that full. Wonderful. So yeah, that is about it. We'll get started. Do you have a hard out or anything like that that we need to stop at a certain time? Um,
Um, Probably 3:30,
okay, cool. Well then
if
we
that's
will.
okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Or what time is it for you?
It's
Is
two
this
twenty.
I
It's 2:30
okay,
right now.
okay, that's the same for me. Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Where do you live?
Wisconsin.
Okay, all right. So I'm a little south of you. Well, not Chicago, but suburbs. So west of Chicago.
Okay.
So are
Okay.
you are
That's where
you
my
in?
family's from.
Oh yeah. Are you
Hmm.
close to Twin Lakes at all up in Wisconsin?
Yes, kind of. I'm like 45 minutes south of Twin
Okay,
Lakes.
that's like the only place I well
So
and
I'm
Matt
like right
and
on the border.
Madison. Oh, okay. Well, there we go.
Okay. Yeah.
Great. So we'll get started. There'll be an awkward pause, and then I'll start talking so I can see where the split is.
Okay, no problem.
All right, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be
Absolutely.
here.
Wonderful. So we'll get started where everybody else does. Let's talk childhood from when we can remember to about middle school. Like, what were you into? What kind of activities and stuff?
Yeah, so I'm from Wisconsin and I'm in Wisconsin right now, but I actually was born in Illinois,
Okay.
Evanston, actually. So I grew up there until I was about in third grade. And I was an ice skater. So up until freshman year of college, I ice skated ever since I was 2 years old. So my childhood is mostly just memories of being at the ice rink
Yeah.
and, you know, skating and practices, early mornings.
Was that on your mom's side, your dad's side? How did you get into ice skating at such a young age?
Yeah, so it was on my mom's side, and we were going to see my cousins ice skate when I was two, and my parents weren't paying attention to me, and I was walking out on the ice as a 2 year old, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, we need to get our daughter." So then they're like, "I guess we should sign her up for ice skating classes." So yeah, I grew up ice skating. Ended up making it pretty far, but yeah, pretty much my childhood is just ice skating.
So as a child skater, what does training and or coaching look like? Is it very individualized? Is it a team sport at a younger age? I don't really know too
Hmm.
many ice skaters, so don't really know the
Yeah,
process.
no, it's very individual. Like I had a coach. It's very like self-motivated. Like no
Okay.
one is telling you to compete or like be
Yeah.
good or anything. Like it's basically like all self-motivated. So I had like dreams of being in the Olympics and like all this stuff. So that was like my driving factor when I was younger. And so yeah, I had a coach, and you have to like, so at ice rinks they have like ice time to practice, and you have to
Yeah.
pay to go on the ice. So it's all very like, yeah, like you said, individual sport, individual like motivation and stuff like that.
So at a young age, what do they even have you doing? Because I can't imagine there's too many skills. I know a lot of people look at just the jumps and stuff like that, but there's a lot else that
Mm-hmm.
goes into ice skating. What was kind of the progressions for you, and even learning or being introduced to those skills?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, a lot of it's like the jumps and spins that you see on TV. And for me, I'm not to toot my own horn, but I was good at ice skating. So I caught on really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was jumping and spinning by the time I was 5. So for
Wow.
me, it was like right away we got into like hardcore training. Um, I would go before school, after school. Not only on ice training, but lots of like dance is involved. So
Okay.
growing up, I also took like ballet classes, stuff like that. And then later in life, they focused more on like strength. So
Mm-hmm.
lots of going to the gym, lifting weights, stuff like that.
So what was the on ice training, what did that look versus an AM session versus a PM session during like general like middle schoolish at times?
Yeah, so growing up, I was not so much in middle school, but probably more towards like high school and stuff. I guess this applies either way. I was able to set up my school schedule to where I didn't have to take gym class. So
Okay.
like I would come to school a little bit later than everyone else because I was training.
Yeah.
So the practices like in the morning and the afternoon pretty much looked the same. But yeah, basically like an hour to 2.5 hours, depending on how much you're trying to get in. Lots of repetition.
Yeah. So for school, you fill out a form. Like, how do you even know that you can get out of gym and go to school late? Like, like who tells you this?
It's kind of funny. It's funny because like for an ice skater to hear this, it'd be like, oh yeah, like of course you do that. But then I always forget that when normal people or like non-ice skaters hear this, it's kind of weird to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of it was just like word of mouth of what other ice skaters were doing.
Okay.
So it was like my mom, for example, would always be the one to drive me to the ice rink. She would hear another mom say, oh, I was able to fill out a form or like talk to our school. That way my daughter could train more in the mornings and then come a little bit later to school. So it was kind of all word of mouth of what we were doing. Like my mom and I didn't know what we were doing. It's kind of just advice that we were given from different people at the ice rink.
Yeah. So for commitment from your parents, like that's a lot too. My mom didn't put me in swimming because she did not want to do the AM lessons. I probably wasn't that good of a swimmer, so didn't miss out on much. But what was the drive like in the morning? Were you close to the ice rink? Were you far? Did you have to go to multiple places?
Yeah, so when I lived in Illinois, I lived like 5 minutes from the ice rink, so it was really no big deal. But like I said, in third grade, I moved to Wisconsin. So once we got there, or here to Wisconsin, the drive ended up being like an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. And training was like 4 to 5 days a week. So definitely a lot of commitment from not only myself, but my parents. And my mom was so happy when I got my driver's license because she didn't have to go waking up early in the morning anymore.
So how early were you getting up then to get to lessons or practice?
Yeah, man, usually it was like 4 a.m. Because we would want to get to the ice rink by 5, get an hour and a half to 2 hours of training in so that we could get back by 8. So that way I only missed, the first hour of school or whatever. So yeah, I'm an early riser for sure.
I would say so. How cool was it missing the beginning of school? Like if I ever missed it due to like a doctor visit or something, I'd walk in feeling cool as can be, but missing every day, what was like that, like the special thing for you, or just that's just what it was?
Oh no, that was so cool for me. That I always thought I was so cool for like missing the first part of school, but it kind of formed or morphed into like my identity or like what people associated with me. Like they would just say, "Oh yeah, that's Libby. She's an ice skater. She misses school sometimes for ice skating." And that's just kind of what it became. And then in high school, I think there was 1 year of high school I missed 68 days of school for competitions.
Just straight up missed it, not even late, just missed it.
Yeah, just straight up missed it because competitions would end up taking sometimes weeks. So
weeks.
Yeah.
What are you doing for weeks?
Well, like a competition, for example, would be a week long. So you would have 2 days of competition, but you want to get there, make sure you're in the right mindset, have some practice sessions on the competition ice, and then you've got 2 days of competition, and then go home. So depending on how many competitions I did in a year, it added up pretty quickly with how much school I was missing.
It sounds like it. So like most sports usually like it's on the weekend with your is it a competition or you meet? What was it called?
Competition,
So
yeah.
was that on like Saturday, Sunday, or was it like in the middle of the week because they don't care about school, or what? when were the competitions?
Yeah, they really didn't care about school. It would depend. So, in ice skating, it's not like football, for example, where there's just one game between two people or two
Right.
teams. Ice skating competitions would usually take a week, not because I was competing for a week, but because there are so many different levels
Okay.
of competition. So I would, as I got older, I would progress in the different levels. So it kind of depended. Each level was usually on a different day. So
Okay.
sometimes I would compete on a Wednesday. Sometimes I would compete like Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It kind of differed as I got older.
Yeah. So how many? What's the levels look like? Because I think gymnastics is like 1 through 10, then Olympic level.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of other sports. I think tennis is like 1 through 5, and then amateur pro. What's the scaling as far as ice skating goes?
It's kind of weird. Again, I have to remember that I'm like talking to someone who's not ice skating
No,
because I know all
and
this
not
stuff
good on
sounds so
ice skates
foreign.
either.
But the levels go from, I guess, easiest to hardest, preliminary, juvenile, intermediate, novice, junior, senior. So
Okay.
the senior level is the Olympic level.
That seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so like when I was younger, and there are like, tots or like younger
Yeah.
levels below preliminary, but that's like the main scale.
Mm-hmm.
So
So how do you know where you're at? Is it based off of the skills of moves that you can do? How do you move up, and how long does it usually take in a position for you?
yeah, it just depends on if you can get the skills to move up. The way ice skating works is the jumps and spins that you see like in the Olympics, for example, that's called freestyle. And there are different levels of freestyle that coincide with the levels of competition. And in order to pass up to the next level, you have to take a freestyle test.
Okay.
So there's like a rule book kind of, and it explains like, okay, so for the preliminary freestyle test, you have to do these 5 jumps or spins, and then you have to perform a program in front of a panel of judges, and they determine whether or not you performed those elements correctly and successfully, and then that's how you pass on to the next level. So it's very weird.
So is that during competition, or you call them up and like, hey, I'm ready? Like
Yeah.
how does that work?
No, yeah, it's completely separate from competition.
Oh.
Yes, skating is weird. So when you're working with your coach, not only are you working on your competitive program or what you're going to perform while you're at the competition, you're also working on this separate program of trying to perfect your skills and eventually test out of that level into the next one. So there are like times, just like if you take a standardized test and you have to sign up online, it'll show you time slots. That's kind of how it is for like the skill tests.
Interesting. Okay, so walk me through like a regular competition for you. Like what does a week look like of competition? And what are you doing when you're not competing, like on those during that week?
Sure. So this takes me back a little because freshman year of college is the last time I competed, but yeah, basically if you had to travel, you would have a travel day, whether it be going on a bus, usually it would usually be by bus or like driving, or you'd have to fly plane, so like usual travel stuff. And then once you get there, it's like a day of rest. This isn't like a necessity. You don't have to rest, but usually I would like a day of rest. And then the next day it would usually be packed full of practice ice, and just getting a feel for the ice rink you're going to be at, kind of calming your nerves, doing some mindset stuff.
Does the ice change from rink to rink? Like, is there such thing as like softer or harder ice, or what's the differences, I guess?
Yeah, Yeah, so every ice skater will tell you that every ice rink and every sheet of ice is different. And there's a ton of different things that like make it different. Just like the temperature, the altitude, just what state you're in, like
Yeah.
just every piece of ice feels different.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So
So yeah.
what's your favorite type of ice?
Oh gosh. I don't know. That's kind of the nice part about having like practice ice when you go to competitions is usually we would try to have enough practice sessions to where when it was time to compete, I didn't really tell a difference.
Okay, so is the practice the same as where you're going to compete on, or is that like next?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you would try to make sure that if you were signing up for a practice session, it was at the same ice rink. And a lot of ice rinks have 2 sheets of ice. So if there was a competition going on at a particular ice rink, for example, on sheet A, sheet B would be available for practice.
Okay. So it's you get there Monday, rest day, Tuesday, practice ice, Wednesday, competition. How many times are you skating? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it depends on what level you are. As you get into the junior and senior level, you have 2 programs, a long program and a short program.
Okay.
Short program is usually like 2 minutes and 30 seconds, around that amount of time. And you have a certain amount of elements you have to perform. Long program, it's about 1.5 times as many elements, and it's around 4 minutes.
Okay.
So usually those would be on 2 different days. So yeah, a rest day, then usually like a practice day to practice on the ice. And then the short program, you compete first, and then the long program, you compete second, and then you're out of there.
So a week for 6.5 minutes of skating, or do you have multiple 2.5 minute?
Nope. You get one shot.
Just one.
One shot. That's it.
Oh no.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. It's kind of like you're building up all this anticipation just for 2 minutes on the ice. And even competition day, you know, at least for women who are skaters, full makeup, full hair.
Yeah.
It would usually be like a slick back bun. That takes like 2 hours.
Are you doing that?
Breakfast in, you're doing off ice. Yeah, you do all these things to get ready. You practice your program off ice. You know, you can't spin off ice, but you can do the jumps off ice.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like an entire day, competition
it's
day,
a thing.
an entire day leading up to 2 minutes. It's a thing.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What kind of mindset stuff were you doing? Was it meditating? Was it kind of visualization? What kind of mindset stuff were you doing?
Lots of visualization. So I would, for each program, you have a different piece of music that you are skating to. So I would just play that music on repeat and just sit there with my eyes closed and just visualize how I was going to compete, landing those jumps, nailing those spins. And I would just do that over and over again until I was convinced or ready to step on the ice to compete. I knew I was going to do it because I had visualized it so many times already.
Now, had someone told you what the power of visualization? I'm going to try to say that more so I get better at saying it. But did someone tell you why visualizing, my Lord, why it helps you so much as far as your brain, your body, and your muscle and kind of connective wise?
So I learned like the visualization technique from my coach, and I actually never really knew the power of visualization. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I just kind of did it because my coach told me to do it, and then I always felt good when it was time to go on the ice. Now that my ice skating career is kind of over, especially in 2020 this year, I've really noticed the power of like visualization, meditation. And it's always kind of been there in my life, but now I have like a name to put to it, if that makes sense.
No, for sure. So as far as coaching goes, how many coaches did you run through, and how do you even find a coach? Or is it just like some guy leaning over at the ice rink and you're like, hey, you need a coach? How do you do that?
So each, I think I probably have ran through maybe 10 coaches in my whole life. Because usually when you find a coach, you stick with that person unless you move or like things change. And I had a couple moves and things changed as I got older. So I had a couple different coaches, but it depends on the ice rink. Usually an ice rink on their website will have a list of coaches with their contact information, and you can kind of just reach out. I think that's what my parents probably did when I was really young.
Yeah.
And then the more we went to the ice rink, the more you kind of get involved with the ice rink drama or like learn more about the people that are there.
Yeah.
So you get to know, okay, who's a good coach and who's kind of a bad coach. So
yeah. So what would, in your eyes, what made a good coach and what made a bad coach?
I always found that I liked my coaches a lot better when they actually had been ice skaters when they were younger.
Okay.
Some coaches they can ice skate and they can give you advice, but they were not an ice skater when they were younger. So
they were just a fan of the game?
Yeah, they were kind of just a fan. I don't really know how those people end up becoming coaches, but a lot of times they're older people, and it's just kind of hard to, they're telling you how they want you to move, but they don't actually know what it feels like.
Right.
So I always liked having coaches that had grown up being an ice skater and then ended up being a coach.
As far as like elementary school, middle school, what were you eating? Like, I feel like you're burning a lot of calories. What was it? Just your family was just sending you away with like a couple of pizzas and sandwiches, or what were you eating?
So I did not recommend my eating habits.
Okay.
First of all, before, I have to preface that because I just think I'm unique in that I have a fast metabolism, but a lot of times it was McDonald's. You're on the road so much, especially with when I lived an hour to an hour and a half away from the ice rink. You get home at 9 p.m. I mean, a lot of times it was McDonald's. My family did try to make nice meals, mostly like grilled chicken and a vegetable.
Yeah.
Pretty standard. But I didn't have too much time where I was at home because I was at the ice rink in the morning. I would go to school and I'd be at the ice rink until 8 p.m. And then no one wants to make food when you get home.
No, absolutely. Time was definitely a commodity. So what was your go-to at McDonald's?
Oh my gosh. Chicken nuggets for sure.
Okay. What was your dipping sauce of choice?
Regular honey.
Okay, I'm with you on that one. My grandma got me hooked on that, but she also did strawberry milkshakes, which I wasn't a fan of those.
Oh, I'm not a fan of strawberry milkshakes. But yeah, and that, and then like anything sugar would like get me ready to go. So McFlurry.
So
McFlurry and nuggets.
There you go. Did your coach ever talk to you about nutrition or having to look physically a certain way or performance or anything like that, or what did that look like?
As I started to get into like middle school and high school, I did, the ice rink would bring in like dietitians or something like that to like educate the ice skaters that went to that rink. And like,
that's wonderful.
And not every rink does this, but, or my coach would try to like bring someone in,
super cool.
And they would try to, give us some tips. Again, I'm not the best example because I never listened to these people. And I'm like, they gave great advice, but it just, a lot of stuff just wasn't realistic for me and my family. So there wasn't ever really a pressure in my experience to like look a certain way. But again, ice skating is just all very much self-motivation so for me, I really focus on, I want to be as strong as I possibly can so that I can jump as high as I possibly can.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people think that, oh, like so-and-so had a dietitian, they just listen to it, or to be like this person, I have to do exactly what it is. And obviously, like if you need it to be, I feel like then you would have been using it, but everything seemed to be fine. So what did the strength training and whatnot look like, and who was giving you that kind of information as your career went on?
Yeah, so a lot of it was weightlifting, squats. you really want to get your leg muscles built up pretty well, because if you're trying to lift yourself in the air and do a bunch of turns while you're in the air, you want to make sure you have strong legs for that. So a lot of it was lower body weight training, a little bit upper body, but not too much. And as I got older, I was able to find trainers at different gyms. Again, this was me, like, not my coach telling me something. It was, okay, well, if I want to achieve this goal, I need to go out and find someone to help me do it. So a lot of it was me going out and looking for these people. And then once I got to college, there was a college program that kind of helped you figure out what to do.
So as far as high school went, missing 68 days, what was life outside of ice skating? What did you do if you had time?
Yeah, I've always been a really creative person, so a lot of it was like drawing and painting as a hobby.
Okay.
But mostly my days were filled, if I wasn't at school or at the ice rink, I was catching up on schoolwork.
Okay.
I learned to be really good at teaching myself pretty much everything because I was missing school and I wasn't in the classroom, but I still wanted to get really good grades. So
how were you at a time like this? I think teaching yourself is very important, but how were you able to kind of, was it a mindset you had that I was just going to learn this? Did you have any nice really tips and tricks? Are you just a genius, or like how did you get this stuff done?
Yeah, I definitely am not a genius. I would consider myself pretty average Joe. So if I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah, but we like that.
No, it was just a lot of YouTube videos. I kind of had this stuck in my head that I was going to be the type of person that got straight A's or close to it. And so I kind of just had that standard for myself and did whatever I could to figure things out. I had really good relationships with all my teachers because which is kind of ironic because I wasn't in the classroom, but that made me seek them out even more for after school sessions when I was available, or like just through email. So a lot of it was just kind of, if you want to get good grades or figure it out, you just got to go for it and do it, which it's kind of hard because I wish there was a better way to describe it, but you know, that's kind of how it was.
No, absolutely. So did you find that what would you do when you were struggling with a subject, or were all subjects kind of the same, you just power through, or what did you do when you had a tough subject in front of you?
Honestly, I just tried to get through it. And there were definitely some classes where I didn't get straight A's. And I think it just got down to, I had to come to terms or accept that maybe in this class I was going to get a B or a C, but like my mental health and well-being is more important than trying to stress and worry about something that I clearly wasn't getting. So as long as I wasn't like failing the class, you know, or completely down under, if it was something that I just wasn't getting, I kind of just accepted it.
For sure. No, as far as mental health and a high schooler being aware of that, where did that come from? Because I think a lot of kids and even adults don't even understand the effect of having poor mental health or just anxiety. Where did that information or knowledge come from, or ideas?
I like to credit all of this to ice skating because truly I grew up with it, and a lot of it was just through coaches and people that my coaches would bring in, and just the overall competitive state that you have to be in when you're a competitive ice skater. You kind of have to build a tough mind around it. And I noticed that just through my own self-awareness that the ice skaters that did really well in the competitive scene kind of had to push stuff down or just deal with it, you know, and kind of move on and not fret about something too long. And not to say that I don't have anxiety today, but it was definitely something that I was aware of when I was younger and learned to deal with.
There we go. So we're in high school. Going to college, what is the recruitment process like? What are you looking at other than just ice skating, or is that kind of the goal at that point?
So it's funny because ice skating was the life. Like, there was nothing else. So I knew the college I wanted to go to since I was like, I don't even know, maybe 5th grade, 6th grade, because it was the best college to go to for ice skating. And it's the only college I applied for. I applied early admission, got in. That was that. We kind of always knew that I was going to go to school there.
So what school is it, in case there are any avid ice skating people listening at the moment?
Yeah, sure. Miami University in Oxford, Ohio.
Oh, okay. I was thinking Florida. I'm like,
Yeah, no, I get that all the time. It's in Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah, so I didn't really have any idea of what I wanted to do for a career. Like I mentioned, I kind of always into art. So I was thinking maybe I would go to school to be an art teacher. But then that competitive mindset came back in when I was a senior, and I randomly decided to major in mechanical engineering.
Well, so it was just randomly pops into the head, or where did that?
So second semester senior of high school, I went to sign up for electives, and I have taken every art, and I'm from a very small town, very small school. The school was like 400 kids total in high school.
That is small. So they definitely knew when you weren't there.
Yes, they definitely knew. And so second semester senior year, I'm trying to sign up for electives, and the art teacher is like, you have taken every art class twice. I can't let you take another one. Like, I'm sorry, you just can't. You've done it already. So I had to pick a different elective, and I just randomly picked small engines. Why? I don't know. Maybe this is fate, but I thought, I don't know anything about engines, shop work. Why? I don't know. But I wanted something that would challenge me. And I knew I know nothing about this. So I'm going to do it because at the end of the day, I'm going to learn something because I'm coming into it with zero knowledge.
Yeah.
So I ended up taking that class. It was really pivotal for me because the whole gist of the class was we had to take a lawnmower apart, down to the nuts and bolts, lay all the parts out, and put it back together with no user manual or anything like that. You just had to do it. And I was the only girl in my class, all these farm guys taking their small engines class, and no shame to them, but my lawnmower was the only one that worked at the end of the class. So I was the only one who successfully put it back together. So that was a very pivotal moment in my life, and kind of why I went to mechanical engineering. I thought, why would I go to school for something art related that I already know so much about when I can go to school for engineering? I'm paying for it, like I want to get the most out of it. So yeah.
So freshman year, you go to sign up for classes and you're like, oh, I'm going to skate for the team and also be on track for a mechanical engineer. What's the sign up process like? Who are you talking to?
Yeah. So since I was they consider ice skating at Miami a D1 sport. So since I was a D1 athlete, I had a whole team of like academic counselors and advisors who were there just to help the athletes.
Nice.
And it was kind of difficult because you can't sign up for as many classes as you would like to. I only took 13 credits first semester and second semester freshman year because there's just so much training that goes into the sport. So that's ultimately why I only skated freshman year of college, because I knew down the line I wanted some sort of a career. So I kind of had to choose between engineering or ice skating.
So engineering being in your life for just 2 years, just wiping ice skating out. How long was that something that was kind of creeping into your mind, or you kind of put that, like, how long did that take to be like, yep, we're done with skating?
It got to the point where freshman year of college, I competed at the world competition, and it's called Worlds, and it's basically the competition that is right below the Olympics. So the next place I could have gone was the Olympics.
So you were pretty good.
Yes, it's pretty good.
Casually says, yeah, I can jump pretty well. Yeah, I'm pretty good.
Again, I always like forget that this is so crazy to other people, but for me, it's just my life.
Yeah.
So I kind of was like, okay, if I keep skating, the next goal is the Olympics. And I kind of had a reality check where I was like, okay, I'm good. But I'm not going to go to the Olympics.
So
I mean,
how did Worlds go for you?
Good. Got ninth. So that was really cool.
Ninth in the world minus Olympians, or were Olympians there as well?
No, Olympians were there as well.
And you got ninth.
But the thing is that for the US, they usually only take the top 2 to 3 ice skaters to go to the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And I was way below them. I mean, there were even people in between me and the Olympic skaters. So it was like, for me, it would have been probably another good 4 to 5 years of work to get up to that level to pass these people in between. So it was a really hard decision, but it was kind of like, I have completed every goal that I've ever set for myself in ice skating. Like, let's just end on a high note.
I like it. So do ice skaters, if you don't go to the Olympics, do they make any money? Or is that just like they have another job and they ice skate and the Olympics on the side? Like, how does that even work?
It could be different now, but from my experience, it's kind of hard to get endorsements as an ice skater because you're also representing the country as Team USA. So it's a lot of like contract conflicts. So it's kind of hard for ice skaters to make money.
That's not good.
Professional athletes. Yeah, it's I feel like people aren't really aware of this. Like, professional athletes, football players, they make so much money, but someone who goes to the Olympics for ice skating, I mean, they may have sponsorships or people who are behind them helping them fund their training. But I mean, for me and my family, it was all out of pocket of my family and for expenses and coaches and everything. And there was never going to be a point where I would start getting paid unless I decided to become a coach.
Okay. So is that kind of the place that a lot of ice skaters go, is the coaching route then?
Yeah, the coaching route, or I don't know if you remember, I mentioned about how you have to take tests to pass different levels.
Yeah.
Or you can go on the panel or the board of those people who sit and judge other ice skaters.
It seems to be a very expensive sport that doesn't have a huge payoff kind of at the top end, which is kind of rough.
And it is. And like I said, it might be different. Like, the people who go to the Olympics now may be making lots of money, but again, that's 2 ice skaters in the country, you know?
For sure.
So it's kind of hard to really get into making a lot of money as a professional ice skater. Unless, of course, there are people who do like Disney on Ice.
True.
Or different like ice skating performance groups like that, where I guess you could get paid, but
So were you on a team at that in college, and what was it like being on a team for the first time?
I pretty much always had a team because it was usually like my coach and then anyone my coach coached. So it was kind of like we were like a group of people who all had the same coach, and we would kind of travel together to competitions and stuff like that. So while it is an individual sport, you do make tons of friends because it's such a small community of people who are ice skaters. But yeah, then coming to college, it was good being on a team. It's different because I was stuck with the same team growing up, and then you kind of grow up together. And then when you get to college, all those people just kind of go away their separate ways. And you come to college and you're on a team where people are coming from so many different locations. So it's kind of hard to mesh in the beginning.
For sure. So we're getting into mechanical engineering. What did the first couple classes, and was there ever a point you're like, ooh, I made a mistake, or you just kind of dove in head first?
Yeah, so I would say I'm definitely an average Joe, so I'm not like a genius. So there were so many classes and concepts that didn't come to me right away. But again, back to skating, it kind of taught me all about how to be a hard worker, and if you want something done, you got to do it yourself. So I had that mentality all throughout college. There were classes that I like failed and had to retake.
Yeah.
So mechanical engineering was definitely a struggle, but it got to the point where I was like, I am too deep into this degree. Like, I just need to finish.
Yeah. What was some of the classes and or projects that you enjoyed in the classes?
The classes that I liked the most were usually the ones where you got to do a project where you built something. For example, one class that really stuck out for me in my college career was sophomore year. And our final project, there were 4 groups in the class, 4 groups of 4, and each group had to make a different part of a pump, a water pump. And so we had to work together all as a class, to come up with dimensions that, okay, if I'm going to make my shaft this long, then you have to make your wheel this diameter. And so we had to do a lot of collaboration within the class, which was cool because our teacher really took a step back and was like, this is the final project. Like, you guys have to work together and come up with a model and a plan. And the reason I like that class is because then towards the end, we actually bought the materials, got in the shop. We were using like sawmills and
cool.
lathes, made the actual pump. And the final, we had to see if it worked. So it did work.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, it did work. And that was really rewarding and kind of reinforced, I'm in the right major, because it was so rewarding to work on something for so long and finally see it come together as like one piece.
For sure. So what were you doing now with all this time since you weren't ice skating? And I probably picked up a couple more hours, but what was it like not having ice skating in your life at that moment?
There was definitely a transition of like sadness, because it was almost like a part of me was done, a part of my life. I closed the door. So there was definitely a point where I was like, I was missing the ice rink. I would still go and like practice for fun. And my time was filled with homework and studying, because I went from being an ice skater but only taking 13 credit hours to now 18 credit hours of engineering, and really just trying to figure out what the heck I was doing.
Yeah, for sure. Did you join any clubs or other sports or anything like that?
Yeah, so I did a sorority and then a co-ed fraternity in college. And
How's
the
that work?
sorority was so the co-ed fraternity was it's called Theta Tau, and it's an engineering fraternity. And so girls and guys can join it, just like how they have like business fraternities or I don't know. I know there's some for like other majors, but it's co-ed, and that was the best decision I ever made in college. And people, it's funny, I find people always ask me, oh, what is advice you give to me? I'm a sophomore in college doing engineering. My advice: literally join an organization, because these people became my best friends. It was great because it was like 100 people in the organization. So every class, I had people from the organization in my classes. So instant study groups, instant place to sit when you walk in on the first day of the new class. So
as far as what would you guys do as an organization? Was it stuff for the community? What kind of stuff did you have there?
Yeah, so we had 3 pillars that we kind of surrounded our activities around. One was brotherhood, so we would try to do things to like bond with each other. So that might be like bonfires, or we would have formal events where you have to bring a date and like have dinner, and then we rent out a bar for that. And then we also had service.
How old were you guys when you were renting out a bar?
Well, it was a college organization, so everyone was basically 21.
Oh, okay.
But so, I guess I have to preface, where I went to school, you could go to a bar if you were 18.
Perfect. Okay.
You couldn't drink, but yeah, so even if people weren't 21 in our organization, they could still come.
Okay.
And then
I thought that was pretty casual, just to rent out a bar.
No, our college town was really small, so that was pretty much all you got to do, is rent out bars to have events.
Well, there you go.
So it was that, or we did service projects. Our organization was Habitat for Humanity.
Okay.
So we would do different like habitat builds, or just like raise money for Habitat for Humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third pill was professional development. So all things resume building, getting a job, getting an internship, stuff like that.
Very cool. So we are coming from McDonald's and home cooked meals. What did school nutrition or food look like for you?
Sure. I am not really a good cook. I learned how to cook kind of in college.
Okay.
Like I hadn't even really ever used an oven before college.
Mm-hmm.
So my go-to was usually veggies and potatoes.
Okay.
Roast them in the oven, and that's what I would eat. I'm not too much of a fan of meat.
Okay.
I'm not a vegetarian. Like I'll eat meat, but I just don't like the way I prepare it.
Okay.
So I usually stuck to veggies and potatoes.
So if somebody else makes the meat, then it's good. But if not, veggies and potatoes.
That's right.
So when you were eating, would you meal plan? Would you just prep it for that meal, or was it kind of like for a couple days ahead of time, or would it just kind of go with the flow?
It depended how motivated I was that week. Like sometimes I would something I really liked making was pasta with Alfredo sauce, and then I would put a bunch of veggies and some shrimp in it. And so if I made that, I would make the whole box of pasta, tons of veggies and shrimp, and then split it out into like containers and put it in the freezer.
Nice.
But if I didn't do that, it was kind of just go with the flow.
Yeah. Was there ever a time after you were done with ice skating that you're like, like I have to work out to be able to eat this much, or was there any of that kind of going on at that time?
Yeah, not really. And again, like I think it's different for everyone. I'm a lucky case, but I didn't really notice like that shift where I was like, oh, I'm like getting out of shape. Of course I got out of shape, but not like, I couldn't physically tell.
Right.
And
you
also I kind of I got out of like the ice skating shape, I guess. But I still like am a very athletic person, so I still enjoy going to the gym like 3 times a week, and so that kind of helped fill the void of like doing something athletic.
Yeah. So as far as those 3 times a week, what kind of program were you running? Was it something that somebody gave you, or did you just go do some machines? What did that look like?
I follow a couple like Instagram fitness influencers, I guess, where they just post their workouts of what they do. And honestly, when I first started going to the gym by myself with like no trainer or anything, I felt really helpless. I was like, I don't know how to do any of this. So I started following some people like that on Instagram and just basically copying exactly what they were doing. And I kind of still do that today.
Yeah. Who are your usual go-tos on the gram?
Whitney Simmons. She's the only one I can remember off the top of my head, but she's pretty good with lifting weights and focusing on like bulking up and stuff like that.
Nice. So is that kind of what you were trying to do in college, was kind of add on some size?
Yeah. I kind of wanted to transition from running and cardio and more go to lifting weights.
There we
Just
go.
because I liked the control of lifting weights. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I felt like I was actually doing something and not just
Yeah.
like dying on a treadmill.
Yes.
So yeah.
For sure. Awesome. So we're ending towards the end of school. Definitely the program organization helps up with getting internships and stuff like that. What type of options did you have once you were graduating?
Yeah. So while my college and like Theta Tau, the organization I was in, do as much as they can to prepare you to get a job, it's kind of all on you. And I feel like, you know, at this point, you're about to graduate college. It's like, if you want a job, you kind of have to go out and get one yourself. So I was really, really lucky. I got the first job I applied for.
Nice.
Yeah, I know that now people are really struggling to find jobs. So I just feel really grateful that I was able to get one before all this craziness happened. But I just found it on LinkedIn, looked up jobs on LinkedIn, applied for my job. I actually didn't apply for my job. I applied for a different position within the company. And then when I went for my interview and talked to the people there and they kind of learned more about my experience, they said, well, we don't think you would be good for this position, but there is a different position available in the company that we think you would be great for. So
wonderful.
I know, it was awesome. So I've been working at this job for a little under a year. It'll be a year on January 2nd. I can't believe it.
That's awesome. Is it in mechanical engineering, or is it kind of in that field, or what's the gig?
Yeah, so there's so much you can do with engineering, and I feel like in college I did not even scratch the surface of what you can do. So my job, my title is technically project manager. So I basically work on proposals and contracts with different customers. And it's dealing with equipment on steam turbines, generators, and valves. So what I like to explain to people that don't know what that is, I basically work on the equipment that powers your house.
Not
so
bad.
Any power, like any power that you see, like power lines and stuff, all come back to a power plant. So I work on the equipment at the power plant.
Awesome. Let's get into that. So I'm going to try to explain how I think it. Actually, I'm not even going to try to explain because it's not going to make me look good. So can you go from start to kind of finish, or what's the cycle if we're starting from the power plant? Is there something before the power plant, or what's the start?
Oh gosh, you're really putting me on the spot here. So basically the power plant is the start. And that's why power plants are so big, because there's so many different ways to create power. Because you start from turning mechanical energy, which is the turbine, it's a rotating element, into electrical energy, which is the generator. And I'm still even learning myself how all of it works.
So how what are they turning the turbine with? Is it what type of fuel are they using?
So it's actually steam. So it's basically, the process is you have this huge tank of water and you have to heat it up to create steam, and then the steam rises through a bunch of pipes and goes through the turbine. And by the time it comes to the end of the turbine, it's lost so much energy that it just goes back down into water vapor, and the cycle kind of starts again.
So how are we heating the water up? Just like a bunch of sticks under there, or what are we heating it with?
No, there's it's a thing called a Hersig, and again, I'm still trying to learn more of this myself as well, but it's basically a big heating element that heats up the water.
Okay, is that coal though, or what's the I guess I'm trying to
I see what you're saying, like okay.
I'm working on the questions.
So it isn't, so it's kind of hard to explain, because power plants can be powered by coal, and I know there's like controversy over coal power plants, but they also can be powered, it's called a combined cycle, and it basically uses natural gas.
Okay.
So combined cycle power plants are technically better for the environment, and those are the type of power plants that I usually work on.
Okay.
There aren't too many coal power plants anymore.
So where's the natural gas coming from? Is that what comes in on those black tankers as you see them on the train, or is it pipeline? That's actually really bad. It's a pipeline, isn't it?
Honestly, I don't know.
Okay, so
I think it differs because so there is like a whole, the power plants, again, like I say, are so big because the steam turbine and generator that I work on is just one tiny portion of the power plant. Then
okay.
there's like the whole natural gas side, which is like a whole different cycle that I don't really focus on.
Okay, so we got the turbines moving, we got the steam going back, and that cycle repeats, and it gets turned into electricity, and then that starts flowing to the people's house.
Yeah, so it from the power plant, it goes out into the electrical grid. So from what I've gathered, visiting a couple different power plants, because I've asked this question to a couple people, like, how far does power actually go?
Yeah.
You know, like, is it, is a power plant in Florida powering people's homes in California? And the answer is no. Which I guess makes sense, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
So usually power plants are within a couple 100 miles of from where it's actually going.
So, and I kind of want to make the point of what the source is and then where the electricity is going, because a lot of people that are powering their electric vehicles is with the natural gas. So
yeah, so it's funny you bring that up because yeah, that is funny because people are so excited to push electric cars and let's make things more electric and get off gas, but ultimately the power has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
It's not just gonna, we're plugging into electricity, woohoo, save the planet. Well, of course, yes, it will help, but there's a whole different cycle that I think people just don't even realize exists.
Right. So, and obviously everyone's trying to get onto solar panels or wind power and stuff like that, but we're not quite there yet. Does your industry talk about any of the alternatives at all? Like, hey, like that's like they can have their hippies can have their fun with it, but we're sticking with this stuff. Like, what's kind of the chatter in your industry?
Yeah, no, they are trying to push like solar panels and like windmill or wind turbines and stuff like that. And the problem is technology is getting better every day, but currently you can have a combined cycle natural gas power plant that will produce upwards of 700 megawatts compared to a windmill or wind turbine which might only produce 2 megawatts.
Oh, that's not good.
So this is the dilemma that I think, people are like, oh, why don't we just have more wind turbines? Well,
that would be a lot.
That's why usually when you go through like, if you're driving, on a country road or something and all of a sudden millions of wind turbines you just stumble upon.
Yep.
That's because you need to have so many acres, so many wind turbines just to get the same amount of power that a regular power plant is achieving.
Yeah.
So there's definitely talks about it, and there's definitely people out there trying to make the switch. The other thing that people don't really realize is the equipment that wind turbines are made of, when you see them, they're so tall, right? You have to shut down highways and like they can only drive certain times of the night in order for the stuff to be transported to its final location. So that's the other thing that I don't really hear too much talk of is how about all the gas that you're spending money on just to power the vehicles to drive all of the stuff to its final destination. So
it'd be nice if they could just 3D print it right there. That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, right.
Just a massive 3D printer. They're good to go.
Right. Hey, maybe one day. Never say never.
There you go. So as it seems, I like to focus on how people get things done or why they get things done. But why do you think you have the mindset that you have? Is it mostly from ice skating? Is it from your parents? What would you kind of contribute all that stuff to?
Honestly, it all stems back to ice skating. And I think anyone who kind of grew up and started a sport when they were really young can agree that sports are so good for your mental health. And like, I'm so thankful that my parents got me involved in skating when I was so young, because it's all about, you know, the self motivation that I keep coming back to. I mean, growing up as a young ice skater, I was watching people in the Olympics, and you know, I'd ask my coach, how did they get there? Well, lots of hard work and practice. And if you want to be there, that's your choice. You know, you can make it there, but you have to wake up at 5 a.m. every day, train for 8 hours. Like, do you want to make that kind of commitment? So I think that's, you know, I'm so grateful to have had that ice skating experience in my life, because I think that really set me up to be the person I am today. And, you know, the self-motivated hard worker who goes to college in something that I don't even know anything about, just to prove a point that I can do it. It all stems back to the skills that I learned when I was a skater.
Absolutely. So when it comes to scenarios in which something is difficult, is your mindset ever trying to figure out how to get out of it, or, oh, this won't be quick, or this won't be easy? Like, what's your mindset when it comes to those types of things?
I think the biggest thing that I have recently been trying to remind myself of is good things take time. And I think it's so hard with, you know, especially with all the instant gratification that we have today, overnight shipping, TikTok videos being 15 seconds long, you know, like, you can consume so much in such a little amount of time.
Right.
So, you know, I'm used to, okay, I want to be a millionaire. And then I wake up the next day and I'm like, why aren't I a millionaire? You know, why hasn't it happened yet? And I think for me, it's just reminding myself, hey, you were 9th in the world, but it took you 20 years to get there, you know? Like, just remind myself that maybe take 5 years. And if you haven't accomplished it in 5 years, then maybe complain. But, you know, really, you got to be in it for the long haul.
So 5 years, millionaire. We'll make sure to have you back on at that time.
Right.
So what does that look like as far as the 5-year plan that you're kind of eyeballing? Because I think most people look forward to the weekend, and that's about as far as they're looking ahead. So what does your kind of 5-year plan look like?
Yeah, it's crazy because I feel like it's changing every day, but right now I'm really trying to focus on paying off my student loans. So I hope to do that within the next year. And then from there, who knows? Yeah, so that's something I'm really focusing on right now. Student loans just kind of give me the heebie-jeebies, and I just want them out of my life. So I'm trying to take advantage of this time living with my parents during Corona and not really having anything to do, to just aggressively try to pay them off.
No, absolutely. When I still remember this conversation with my now wife, I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks into us dating, and I had never had an ounce of debt to my name, just because I was always afraid of it. Barely got a credit card when I was 20, because I was like, I can just pay cash for everything. So I knew she had gone to a nice school to be a American Sign Language interpreter. So I'm like, all right, if we're gonna make this thing serious, like if we're gonna get married, obviously we're gonna have the same amount of loan issues going on. What kind of number do you have? And she's like, oh, it's about 100,000. I was like, wow, we should probably get started on this. But her plan at first, to no fault of her own, it was just kind of what her school said was, you get a loan, you pay it off in 10, 15 years, and the interest is just there. And that's what everyone was doing. So where did your mindset come through that you're like, I should probably get rid of these?
Yeah, so I have a little over 50,000. So I know that I could have way more. But honestly, it's nothing really that I learned in college or that anyone told me. It's just kind of like, now that I'm done with school, and I did take a good maybe like 4 to 6 months not paying my student loans after school and just like spending everything. And I
Wait, what did
started
you get? Did you get anything good?
all just like clothes, like stupid stuff. But I started tracking my expenses on an Excel
Oh,
spreadsheet. So at the end
never
of
a good
every month,
idea.
I would go through my bank statements and I would write, and I made categories like shopping, food, alcohol, entertainment. And I felt sick to my stomach because I was spending like $5,000 to $7,000 a month. And I was like, on what? What am I spending
Wow.
money on? Like, I was freaking out. I was like,
Is this with living
okay,
at home with your parents?
this is with living at home. So
Wow.
I didn't have any other expenses, but I was like, where is this money going? And with the student loans right now, the interest has been put on pause, so there's no interest on your loans.
That's amazing.
So my boyfriend, he went to school for financial planning,
Oh,
and he was like,
great move. Great
when
find right
he
there.
when he found out that how much I had been spending, I kind of casually told him, and he almost threw up. He was like, you have no interest on your student loans right now, and you are spending that much money, and you could be putting that towards your loans. And I was like, yeah, what's the big deal? And he was like, you could make, he really kind of, showed me the light. And he was like, you could be making such a huge dent and be paying that off even faster. And he really helped me kind of switch my mindset into, I could make the minimum monthly payment and just kind of always have this bill in the background of my life. Or I could just really try to pay it off as fast as possible while I'm living at home.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So other than just crushing it and paying your bills off, how are you staying sane at these times? Like, what are you doing for your health?
I've really been into manifestation lately, and mindset and stuff like that. So for me, 2020 has actually been a great year because I've been really just focusing on myself. I know it sounds cheesy, but I've started taking meditation really seriously, journaling really seriously, and just being grateful. Which sounds like such a small thing, but it has transformed my life completely. I'm just happier. I'm just a happier person.
I feel like if you know, and if you don't know, you will have a weird face on when someone says that. So what introduced you to not necessarily self-acceptance, but the joy, the happiness, and bringing that stuff forward?
Yeah, I completely stumbled upon it by accident, honestly. Someone was talking about it. Someone that I follow was talking about it on their Instagram stories, like an influencer or someone like that. And I thought, oh, this sounds kind of interesting. And they were promoting for this manifestation coach, and this woman had an hour-long session that was free that you could just go and learn about manifestation. It was like a Zoom call kind of.
Cool.
So I logged on, and it was basically just her saying, asking, do you feel stuck with your life? Do you feel like you have reached all the goals or achieved all the goals that you wanted to in life, and now you're like, what do I do next? And I was feeling just like that, because I was like, okay, I did what I wanted to with skating. I got my degree. I have a job. I was like, what the heck am I supposed to do with my life now? So I kind of just fell down a rabbit hole on YouTube, honestly, learning about manifestation and just the general idea that the more grateful you are, or the better it gets, the good just keeps coming towards you, and you can only attract into your life at the highest vibration that you currently are living your life. So if you are kind of bumming out and you're sad, you're kind of vibrating down here, you're only going to be able to attract things that are at this level. And you don't, millionaires aren't at this level. Millionaires are vibrating all the way up here. So if you and money is just one example, but
Right.
if you want to be a millionaire, you got to figure out how to raise your vibration up to that. And so there's a lot of like quantum physics behind it. So I think my science background kind of really helped me understand. And I'm still learning now. So
that was gonna be my next question. What does vibrations mean?
So everything, even my glasses, everything is always in motion. Molecules, even for something that is solid, is always moving.
Yep.
So vibration is just this idea that everyone is just made up of energy, and how fast you're vibrating or what energy level you are on determines kind of how your life is. So yeah, it's as simple as just being grateful can raise your vibrational energy. And I still don't know too much about it. Still definitely like learning about it and just doing my own personal research, but
for sure.
It's very fascinating for anyone who doesn't know what it is.
Part of the process for you at the moment. Great.
Yeah.
So yeah, just kind of to wrap things up, what is your definition of health? Not the dictionary definition, but what is health to you?
I think right now my definition that I have to give you on health is mostly mental health. I think someone who is very healthy has pretty good mental health, in good shape to what they define as good shape, and just overall being happy with your life's decisions. Because I think at the end of the day, no matter how bad you think your life is or how you think certain circumstances have affected your life, we are the only ones who can change our lives. No one's going to change it for us. We gotta take the steps to be the people that we want to be. So I think good health all stems from the mental health.
I like it. And as far as something from this podcast that you think could positively influence somebody else's life, like what takeaway would you give them?
Oh my gosh. I think like something that I would say to someone listening to this podcast would just be never stop learning. I thought that learning ended when I was done with college, but that is so not true. I think that if you feel stagnant in life right now, close your eyes and pick a topic to start learning about. I know it sounds silly, but I think that keeping your mind and your brain active is really a good thing to focus on. And so, never stop learning. That's what I would say.
Absolutely. I love it. And if anybody was to find you on Instagram or social media, where would they look for you?
Yeah. So I'm mainly on TikTok and Instagram. It's Libby B on the label.
Okay.
And so, I'm through those socials, I'm just trying to promote, trying to be a good role model for other women who are looking to be engineers or, who just need advice in male dominated fields.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. That was great.